Hey, everybody, and welcome back. It is Thursday. Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Life Show. For those who have been tuning in for the first time, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are not familiar with the show, we are streaming on several different platforms. So I'm excited for you to be here and for all of my faithful listeners who have been listening faithfully, continually, how I sincerely appreciate it. So let's get the housekeeping out the way. I'm very excited to thank my new sponsor, shopmystorenow.com. Make sure you go there, check it out, shopmystorenow.com for some great gift ideas, men, women, children, family, everything. So I hope you guys go there and check it out. And for those who have missed some of our past shows, make sure you check out the website, entrepreneurlifeshow.com, for past guests and upcoming guest interviews on the calendar. Okay, so who do we have on the show today? I love it when I get great guests. I think I always get great guests, though. But I love it when I get great guests. And I have actually never had anyone like today's guest, which is kind of exciting because it's in the film industry. And I actually follow quite a few people like women in film and directors and stuff like that. So it was exciting when I was introduced to this specific person who is Barry Kang, actor, director, writer. Yeah, basically, he's doing it all in the industry. He's best known in what you might be familiar with Scraper or Lucky, really crime thrillers, drama. I'm from the Alfred Hitchcock days, so I love when I get like some crime thrillers and drama. I mean, some of today's movies aren't that great, so I'm really excited about that. He has been compared to who we all know, if you're not familiar, with Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino. And so when you see his stuff, you're gonna want to follow, because if you are excited about Martin or Quentin, then you know that if he's anything compared to them or even close, then he's got his stuff going. He's pretty amazing. So I'm going to bring him on the show so we can learn more about him. Very excited to have him here. Let's bring him on. Hi, Harry. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much. I want to meet this guy too. That was very exciting.
Well, I actually am. I'm really into drama. I'm
Hmm.
really into anticipation. There's
Suspense.
sometimes
Yeah.
in movies where you can watch in a lot of movies today and you can already anticipate what's going to happen versus you're like
Yeah.
waiting, like what's going to
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm really into suspense as well. So you were talking about Hitchcock. I'm a big believer in that. And you can do a lot in cinema and movies, really play with people's expectations and make them
Yeah.
think something's going to happen, and all of a sudden you pull it out from underneath, or you do something crazy that everyone thought, oh, he wouldn't have done that. And
Yes.
yeah, so definitely. So I'm glad you're into that, because you'll get that from The Scrapper, my latest film. You definitely get that.
I watch a lot of stuff on, Netflix, bro, because you can't get them on regular TV.
Hmm.
So I'm prone to watch stuff on there because they have a lot of great
Yeah.
series. As a matter of fact, you're on Roku. But I wanted to start off by asking, as a Punjabi immigrant transitioning,
Hmm.
what was that experience or transition like, when you decided,
Yeah.
to come here?
So I was very young. My parents are the ones that went through it. I was 5.5, almost 6 years old.
Hmm.
And so for me, the journey was very different than what they went through. They went through that very typical, hard, difficult, way of coming to America, which is, they came here illegally. We came as refugees because it was very bad back in Punjab and in India during the 80s. Things had gotten very out of hand, and basically Punjabis and Sikhs were being targeted and murdered. There was a lot of crazy things happening. So they fled, and I happened to be in tow. My brother, he was about three. He was about three,
Hmm.
2.5, three, and I was about almost six. So it was, for me. I didn't feel the pain that they must have gone through, because I was young. But for me, it got difficult when I got here, not being able to speak the language, being thrown into a whole new school system, And that for me was hard because that was my life, right? I came into this new country. Things were amazing because I saw things that I never saw before. I remember the first time I used crayons were on the airplane on an airplane, and the first time I used a Western toilet was on the airplane. It was kind of intense. So it was very new, very exciting, but then kind of reality hit when my new life was handed to me, and we were very poor. My parents went into debt basically to escape our
Wow.
country. Yeah, yeah, and things were going well for us actually. We didn't leave because they were seeking the American dream or they were
Hmm.
seeking riches. We had to leave. It was where do we go? And we had family here. They knew people that came here and settled here. Everybody wanted to come to America, but honestly, we were doing. My father was doing very well. He had just started his business, and all this was taken away from him kind of overnight, and it was a fly-by-night thing. One day we're there, the next day we're, going to Hong Kong and getting on a flight to come to America as other people. It was pretty, but for me, again, they didn't let me feel that, or at least I don't remember that. And so I remember these interesting moments. So, but once I got here, I went through that transition. And little by little, it took a long time, but they kind of threw me in the deep end of the pool, and it was either
Hmm.
sink or swim. And I swam. I'm sure I drowned a lot on the way, but I had no choice, and that's what it was. So yeah, that was my particular journey. Yeah.
Do you think that any of your experiences from that transition is why I asked that question is that intrigued you about the fascination of the dark side of human nature and
Oh,
as your
absolutely.
films? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happened is, like I said, we were very poor, and my parents were paying people off for many, many years to help us get here. So we lived in a pretty rough neighborhood. We shared a basement with another family,
Hmm.
so it was very interesting. And I grew up around a lot of crime and poverty, and they did the best they could to shield us from it. But you're exposed no matter what.
Right,
And
right, right.
the schools I went to were pretty rough, and I was always kind of on edge, like what's gonna happen, and you get mugged on the way home, walking home. You have a couple of quarters in your pocket, you lose those on a daily basis, and you hope, no, no, you hope, that's the worst that's gonna happen that day. You don't get beat up or something. And being an outsider, I couldn't fit in. I didn't fit in with the Black community. I didn't fit in with the Hispanic community. I didn't fit in with everybody, anybody.
Yeah,
Nobody could figure out what to do with me.
yeah.
So I tried to be like everybody else, and it was very challenging. It was one day I'm trying to be like this, another day I'm trying to be like this group, and everyone's got their cliques. And this is the
Yeah.
early '90s, right? It was very different time back then, and so it took me a long time to get my bearings and really appreciate and accept who I am, and where I come from. And the older I get, the more I appreciate it because now I'm able to actually value the things and see them for what they are, instead of like, oh, why aren't I like this? But I'm over here. It was always like that struggle of, but I'm in America. I want to be American now, and that kind of thing. But now that I've gone through it, I think I'm a more authentic version of myself, and it definitely colors my work because I was on the fringes for a long time, and
Right, right, right.
I had a unique lens into a very specific community. I mean, we've
Hmm.
seen the Italian mobsters, we've seen the
Yes.
African mobsters, the Latin
Yeah.
mobsters, and we've seen all that stuff. The Russians, but we haven't gotten a lens into the South Asians, the Punjabis, we because everyone thinks, oh, those are the funny guys. Those are the guys at
Yes.
7-Eleven or at the gas station, and this is far, far, far from the truth.
Exactly.
Some of the roughest people I've come across are Punjabis. Like the stories that my uncles used to tell me of what they did to get out of there or what they had to do because they couldn't leave. And it just is just mind-boggling. And so when I kind of got the acting bug and I wanted to be in this industry, I felt
Mhm.
like I had a lot of wealth to delve into and share with the audience that maybe they're not familiar with. And luckily, it seemed to work. People appreciate the fact that they got to see a different side of the South Asians, the Punjabis that they're not
Right.
familiar with, and especially right here in America, in Queens, and it's all over America, but it's specifically Queens because that's where I grew up.
So, what was the interest specifically in film, though? Why film? I mean, there's so many things you could have done, and like you
Yeah,
said, and this is, I know this is stereotypical, but
yeah.
unfortunately, with specific races, it's a certain stereotype of what
Uh-huh.
they assume you're going to do.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, they're still telling me what to do. They, but so. Growing up, I remember my escape was watching movies. My parents worked all day. They worked 7 days a week, but every week my dad would come home once a week with like the latest Bollywood movie, and
Mhm.
it was like all pirated stuff. But once a week, no matter what, we would sit down as a family, in our little basement with like a pizza and watch these movies. And I just used to get lost in it. I used to forget everything. And then as I got older, I discovered, oh, there's more than Bollywood. And, I discovered this rental shop down the block because my brother and I, we were free. My parents weren't home all day. They left before we woke up and they got home way after we went to bed. So we were out. We could do whatever we want, it was, and we would just go and get these movies. And so on an early age, I would just get lost into these movies. And I just loved it. I don't know why. I didn't think I wanted to do this. That never even crossed my mind. It was just, I would just love the experience and, immersing myself into it. And I always just tended to watch these darker films. Then I discovered,
Mhm.
the whole Italian culture because I ended up going to school in Howard Beach for a little while. And so that's where I kind of learned of Scorsese and everything, and then Tarantino as I got older. And the stuff just blew my mind. Again, I don't know why. I had no, I never had the thought, this is what I want to do. I mean, everyone around me told me what I should be doing. I got to go to school, I got to get good grades, and I got to be a doctor
Right.
or a
Right.
lawyer or an engineer.
Right.
That's what you got to do, and that was my plan. I got to go to school, get good grades, and be a doctor and make my parents proud. And but it didn't pan out like that. I mean, I went to Columbia Business School eventually, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, I graduated right before the big economic collapse. I actually
Mm.
graduated in late 2007, so right before everything just fell on its face. And I couldn't get a job with the Columbia MBA degree. It took me a year. Yeah, can you imagine? It took me a year to get a job, and even that it was a pretty crappy job. Nothing like what I thought I was gonna do or get.
Right.
And by now, I had developed an interest in acting. I had taken some stuff, and then I said, let me just start looking into this a little more. And then the
Mhm.
more I looked into acting, the more I realized this is what I should have been doing for like, for so long. But
Oh,
I
sorry about
was,
that.
yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. So, the acting started to pull me in that direction. And the more I
Mhm.
got into it, the more I kind of got immersed into it. I realized this is it. This is what I want to do. And this was kind of late to the game. I was a little older than usually people get into this game.
Right.
And I went on the treadmill of auditions. I upped my acting game. I got the best teachers I could. I stepped it up. I said, hard work equals success. That's what they tell you.
Right.
And so I started doing that. I started, I did everything you're supposed to do. And I auditioned for about a year, and I just got fed up with it. I said, this is not acting. I'm just running around like a chicken auditioning for stuff I don't even want to do, like those stereotypical things.
Right.
Like I
Right.
was thinking of these other movies, these other characters, like where are these people? Why can't I do that? And one, there's not a lot of opportunity like that. That's one. So in all industry, there's a lot of opportunity just doesn't exist for those types of characters, for those types of actors. And then two, like you said, you get pigeonholed. You get pigeonholed
Yeah.
by casting
Yeah.
directors, by
Yeah.
producers, by industry, by audience. It's kind of like a vicious circle, So you have to show people different things for them to be like, oh, okay, we can have colored leading men or
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
or what authentic people. Everything doesn't have to be the same. Oh, we can have crime thrillers with brown people or Asian people, and it can be just as good and even scarier sometimes because you're not used to this stuff. And then I said, okay, I got to find another way. This is an entrepreneur show, so my big thing has been I never like to go where the competition is. I'm not interested in competing. I want to create so things come to me because I feel like in the West here, very capitalistic mentality. Everyone's always butting heads, trying to compete,
Yeah.
and that'll
Yeah.
only get you so far. So my
Yeah.
kind of personal mantra has been I have to create, and if I can create value, hopefully will come, if the stars align and all that good stuff. So I decided, let me broaden my scope here, let me become a little more valuable. And on the
Mm-hmm.
advice of a very well-renowned casting director, I started to write, and writing led to directing. So I wrote myself my first role. I said, all right, if you guys don't want to give me a leading role, I mean, I was getting good feedback, but I had never done anything substantial. So this was also a chance for me to prove to myself first and the industry second that I could do this. I can carry a movie on my shoulders. I can do this stuff. So that's what my first film, that's what fueled that first film, was this kind of crazy energy that I just had to go out and honestly prove to myself, one, that I could do this, and then two, to everyone else, yeah, I can do this and I can carry this. So that's how Lucky came about, and I wrote it, I directed it, I starred in it, I produced it with my wife. She helped me do everything. It was kind of crazy. Everyone told me I'm nuts, and I said, yeah, probably, but what do I have to lose here? It's not like people are banging down on my door to give me
Right. Right. Right.
opportunities. So why not create something and see what happens? And you know what? I told myself when I got into it, because I had no formal training in
I was
filmmaking
going to
and
bring that
writing,
up.
directing, zero, zero. I mean, I spent all
Yeah.
my money going to Columbia Business School. People go to film school for 6 years to learn this stuff. And I said, okay, I'm going to treat this as my school. And if I can, at the end, have a product that's kind of close to what I want, and it can,
Right.
even if it's just watchable, that's a good sign. If I can just get people to be like, all right, okay, and that that kind of happened. So my naivety kind of worked for me, just jumping in on the deep end again, and I decided I have to do it. I have to do it. And movie was very different than what I had in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the resources, and
Mm-hmm.
filmmaking is not a cheap hobby. Unfortunately, I mean, everyone says, "Oh, you can make a movie for no money." This is not true. Even if you spend $0, you still need to feed everybody. You
Right.
need,
Right.
you're paying for it one way or another, whether it's goodwill or something. And a lot of people, worked for free. That's great, but that's goodwill. That's the goodwill that you're giving away or taking. And so nothing is ever free. But yeah, so I had this product and I was proud of it. I said, all right, this is not bad. And it got into Urban World Film Festival. It won Urban World Film Festival. And then, I got my audience award from Ava DuVernay. It was kind of surreal. And I said, this is crazy. Everyone told me I was nuts. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And here I am
Uh-huh.
getting an award from Ava. Like this is, this is legit. I got a great review from the LA Times. And, the gamble kind of paid off. Now, in the marketplace, obviously, when you make a movie, the audience doesn't know the story behind the movie, right? They don't know how the
Right.
movie was made. They don't know why
Right.
the movie was made. All they know is they're gonna spend 90 minutes of their life or seven to
Mm-hmm.
$15 of their money to watch
Right.
this movie. So, there people could be cutthroat, because if someone's paying $7 for my movie and then they're paying $15 for a $200 million Marvel movie, you
Right.
know, but that's not why I made it. I made it to see if, where I can go with this. And that fueled the next project. Now that I had this confidence, like, it really gave me a lot of confidence. Confidence is extremely important. I think, one, you can't care too much about what people think, especially when you're starting out, because there will be a whole line of people telling you how things will go wrong and why you shouldn't do whatever it is you, whether it's starting a business or something creative, anything, even a new diet. You'll get 10 people telling you why you shouldn't do it. And
Hmm.
hardly one person will tell you, yeah, man, go for it. You know what? Give it a shot. And so you have to be careful in the beginning, don't listen to the naysayers. Now that doesn't mean, it'll work out exactly how you want, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to just get on with it,
I'm glad because you did mention, like, because from what I heard, you didn't go to school for that. That wasn't your educational background. And then to say
No,
that you were going to write, to find
yeah,
and create the genre for yourself.
yeah,
So that has to take, I'm assuming, a lot of imagination, a lot of vision, and then the skill how to piece it together, knowing that it's kind of like you're self-taught for
yeah,
everything.
yeah. Well, I think even though I'm not in the corporate world, I think my business training and my business degree do serve me very well. In fact, I think it serves me a lot more than it might somebody that's pigeonholed into a specific corporate job, because I'm using it
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I'm using it to manage. So people say, "Oh, you're an artist." That's just a fraction of it. I look at myself as a craftsman and as an entrepreneur, because you got to live and you got to eat, right? And you got to work on your craft. And
Right, right,
so
right.
you really have to be able to balance how to get, and especially in this industry, if you're making movies, you can't, I guess you can, but you can't really make a movie by yourself. It takes a village. Maybe you can write a movie, but you can write a movie by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just the beginning. That's the map. I think that's the most important part, is that, getting that map, that blueprint, because without that you
Mm-hmm.
can't do the other steps. But after that, you need producers, you need director of photography, sound people, actors. There's so many moving parts that you really need to know how to manage people. And so you
Mm-hmm.
have to have some type of understanding of how that works, whether it's management or just understanding what motivates people. And the vision is super important, because there are so many people involved in the process. You might end
Mm-hmm.
up making something that you did not want to make, because you communicated something wrong, or someone in another position kind of subdued your vision a little bit because they had their
Right,
own idea.
right,
So there's
right,
a lot
right.
of there's a lot of that. So you really got to have a clear vision. It's kind of like a ship. You got to know where that ship is going. And if you're on this ship and it's landing in Mexico, you got to know that in the beginning. Otherwise, you might end up somewhere else in the Caribbean, or something else might happen. And now that doesn't mean you can't be flexible, because there are so many people involved. Sometimes you get some great
Mm-hmm.
ideas, and you might adjust your course, or you might see where you were wrong or where things could be better. But you really got to know what it is you're trying to create. Now, with the first one, Lucky, I had this in my head, but I wasn't able to fully express my vision, like I said, because there was a lot of lack of experience, lack of resources, lack of time. Everything
Mm-hmm.
was lack. But what I did have was creativity, energy, and drive. But I also relied heavily on people around me, because I was scared. Deep down, I was like, oh my God, I've never done this. Even though what if I mess it up? So let me listen to
Right,
everyone.
right.
So maybe I listened too much at points, and maybe I didn't take risks that I wanted to take. And but that's okay. This that was a lot of it was learning for me. And on the second film, The Scrapper, I had this clear vision from the first word that I put on the page. I said, I already know the kind of movie I want to make, and this is what it's going to be. So I mapped out everything in my mind, and then on paper, even down to the clothes that each character should wear, like this color for this group of people, that color for this person. I had it all mapped out. Now that doesn't mean there was no room for creativity. No, but
Right, right.
it just gave a good map, because if you know the rules and if you know where you're going, it's that much easier, I think, to adjust and to improvise. But if you don't have the vision from the beginning, how can you improvise? Then you're just going with the kind of hoping things work out. So I think it's very important that, especially when you have an enterprise like this or any other business where you're dealing with multiple people, personalities, resources, you really got to be on the same page, and that all comes down to sometimes one singular vision. So yeah, that's very important.
I wanted to ask is, okay, you have your vision, you get, where you're writing it to basically find the character for yourself, but then to build the characters around it, and how do you
Hmm.
find the right characters to build around it? Because of course, and knowing that, and especially I know I hear that in the industry when you're first starting out, a lot of actors, even great well-known actors today will do things for free for the credits or to get the experience in a different genre. So how difficult was that finding the other actors? You actually had, I mean, it was from when I was watching some of Scraper. I mean, you're really good in it. You're really great in it.
Oh,
But how
thank you.
did you find the actors? And especially knowing that because they were really good, you would not
Hmm.
know because I've seen some, forgive me for some people say this. I'll watch some stuff like I said on Roku and Netflix and Amazon, and I always try to support upcoming.
Hmm.
But some of the writing is horrible or just the background noise, and I'm like, I can't
Yeah,
do it. I'm trying.
yeah,
And so I was surprised at how well, I mean, you would not know that you were just starting off. You would not have, and I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about when you
absolutely,
see people and it's
absolutely,
like,
yeah,
I'm like, are they using their phone and they're filming that, or do they just have a bad camera? But it
yeah,
was it
yeah.
was really well. It was really well produced.
Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad you like my work. Uh, so yeah, so nowadays anybody can make a movie. That's a blessing. It's also a curse,
Yeah.
because then you end up with a lot of things that aren't up to par. That's why I
Hmm.
say you can't just make a movie. You have to meet, especially if you're an audience and somehow your film makes it onto these platforms, and an audience member, forget even if they're watching it for free on Tubi, like for example, Scrappers on Tubi right now, it's your
Hmm.
time. You're spending 90 minutes of your life. Like, how much is
Yes.
that worth? 90 minutes is a
Right.
lot. That's a chunk of your day. So they expect a certain level of quality. And
Yeah.
with my first film, Lucky, I remember I made it for, I think, $30,000. But there's only
Hmm.
so much you can do. If you turn on Lucky and you turn on the Scrapper, they're in two different leagues. And that's because of the production value. And that really comes down to the resources you had. Let's not even say
Right.
money, resources. What kind of
Right.
camera, what kind of technicians, locations. And unfortunately, usually that comes down to money or connections or goodwill or whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
even
Right.
Scrapper in the world of film, it's a very low budget movie. It was, I think, $250,000, which is nothing. Movies are made, the average movie that we watch is made for a few million, the average movie that we watch. And then the big movies that we watch are made for tens of millions. And then the blockbusters are made for hundreds of millions. So even in that
Right.
sense,
Right.
the fact that you watched it and that some other people watched it and they say, wow, this looks like $1 million movie. And I tell them it's not even close to $1 million movie, but I had committed people. I had the experience now. I knew kind of what I was doing. And it came down to the story that I had written, and that was very strong. That's why the script is so important. And then
Right.
you really, to come back to your question, you need really good actors or non-actors, whatever it is. They
Right.
need to
Right.
be they need to be
Right.
real, and they need to be believable, because if you can have a great looking movie that sounds great, but if you get somebody that's wooden or just sticks out like a sore thumb, that could really ruin the whole experience for the audience.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really comes down to the actors. I knew Jake was no problem because I was going to be Jake. I mean, I was living
Right.
with Jake for it was so long. And then the biggest struggle for smaller films is finding good actors. Now, you touched on something else. Yes, a lot of well-known actors will do things for free per se because they want to do something different, or they're not getting the
Hmm.
opportunity to do that kind of work that they're really committed to or they believe
Right.
in because they're too busy doing the big paycheck jobs. But just because you get them for free doesn't mean it doesn't come with other costs. You still have to house them, you still have to feed them. You
Mm.
still have to have a certain level of production for them to step on to your project, right? And so it really does raise the cost. But that doesn't mean there's not a lot of up and coming actors who you can get for a reasonable rate. So we were a low budget film with SAG, which is a union for actors, and they
Right.
have they have a reasonable daily rate. I think it was around 200 a day when we were doing it per actor, which is not a lot of money. But these are people, who are up and coming or have been doing it for a long time, but they just really love the project. So a couple of these guys just loved the script. I sent them the script. I went without, I bypassed the agents. I just said, I found them on Facebook. I was like, hey, man, I'm doing this. This is who I am. You got to check this out. I guarantee you it'll be something that you haven't done before.
Right. Right.
And that happened with a couple of the actors, and their agents didn't want them to do it because it wasn't a big paycheck. But when they read it, they said, "Holy crap! I get to play a brown cop who's crazy and gonna go around killing people. Like, yeah, I'm on board. Oh, I get to play a gangster, like an Indian gangster. Yeah, let's do it. So these people got excited about this stuff, and that's one way to get them is just have some good material, and then try to find an end. And you have to have something to show them so that they're comfortable and they know that they're in good hands. And
I've
another
always
part is, yeah,
no. Go ahead and finish. I was going to ask you something about that when you're done.
sure, sure. And we also had we had a good casting director attached to the film. So one of my producers, Stevan, he had a relationship with a good casting director, and that's how we
Hmm.
got her to read the screenplay. It is a lot about, I don't want to say it, who you know. It really is
I was going to ask that.
because you know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like, oh, if you know somebody famous and you know someone important, all of a sudden
Hmm.
success is guaranteed. No, that's not what it is. It's just that if you know somebody, they have a certain level of comfort in looking at your work, looking at the
Hmm.
opportunity. Otherwise, people are okay with just working with who they know, so there's no surprises. They don't get taken for a ride, or they don't invest their time and their work
Hmm.
into something that's not even gonna happen. A lot of movies never even get made. A lot of business plans don't even get off the page, and then that's why people tend to just work with who they know. So there is that component. You have to make relationships, nurture them. It's time consuming. It takes years and years. And if you're lucky enough just to know people, you have to lean onto that. And so my producer was friends with this casting director, and that's how she read it. And she was like, "Oh, this sounds great." And then she believed in me because he believed in me. You know what I mean? It's a lot of
Right.
that,
Right.
kind of like the 6 degrees of separation or whatever. Like, there's accountability. That's what it is. It's, people kind of like to dilute it. Oh, he just got famous because of who he knew. No, 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 no. That's how sometimes opportunities come to your doorstep. But if you don't have the
Yeah.
talent to back it up, or if you don't
Yeah.
have the drive, the work ethic to get it done, that will quickly blow up in your face. So yes, knowing people is very important, but that's not what makes or breaks you in
Oh,
these
I agree.
big scenarios.
And I know there has been from just interviews I've seen of, different celebrities who have passed up a film because
Hmm.
it wasn't a blockbuster. And then it becomes a
Yeah,
blockbuster by somebody who I'm, exaggerating when I say made it in their backyard or made it
yeah,
because everybody chipped in or you know what I'm saying. And
yeah.
I've heard of interviews like, people were offered a part and it was like, well, no. And the actor sometimes doesn't even know The agent
Right,
just says
exactly.
no.
Yeah,
Um,
yep. Because everyone, at the end of the day, it's a business. The industry, especially in the West here in America, not even the West, especially in
mhm.
America and in the U.S., the film industry, it's is first and foremost a
Yeah,
business, and it's a
yeah.
business industry. It's not, it's, other countries, for example, in Europe, there's a lot of government funding, a lot of grants. So many movies just get made for the sake of being made as art, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of resources. Here, it's primarily a business. It's it exists to get a return.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Right.
of course, you have the independent film scene, but hey,
Yeah.
if you're making a movie and then you're not making money, you're not making another movie. End of story. Unless you happen to have deep pockets and you just can finance everything yourself. That's, that which happens too. But it's you really have to look at it that way, and that's why I think you said before, sometimes we're on Netflix and we see all these kind of average, kind of middle ground, not so
Mhm.
good, not so bad. All right, maybe I'll watch it. Maybe I'll watch 30 minutes today, kind of thing.
Mhm.
It's because,
Yeah.
they kind of market it towards the general audience. They know
Yeah.
certain people are just gonna like this product, and that's why all these movies get made. Because I have a lot of friends, and they're like, "Oh, I got the best movie, I got the best idea. Why is all this other garbage being made?" I'm like, "Well, it's not garbage. It's because there's a demand for it. It's not
Yeah.
like people
Yeah.
make bad movies. They're being made because somebody sees a return. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
if it was
Yeah.
yeah, if it was a
Yeah.
one-off, it would be one
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah.
if there's so much of it, that means there's a demand for this stuff. Maybe it's not your demand. Maybe it's not,
Hmm.
maybe it's other countries. Maybe it's other different types of populations. But movies are being made because, someone is trying to make a buck.
And of course, they can tell by just the way with just by ticket sales and even people what
Yeah,
they're downloading because on your Roku or Fire Stick or whatever, as soon as you
yeah,
watch something, people say movies you'll like because it's finding the trend of what people are
right,
watching.
right,
Um,
right.
do you find it more challenging as a director and actor? How do you direct yourself?
So, yeah, this is very interesting. So I learned the most I ever did about acting from writing. I remember
Hmm.
when I picked up the pen to start writing, like, kind of something just went off in my creative brain where I said,
Hmm.
"Oh, like," because before, up until that, I was just an actor trying to be an actor and do these
Right.
characters. But when I started writing, it's something else. I don't know what, honestly. So don't ask me what. But something just went off where I was able to see these characters that I come across on the page. I'm like, oh, I just started approaching it in a more organic way. And I
Hmm.
really tapped into that. And then the writing also lends itself to the directing. So I think writing is crucial for any artist, especially
Yeah.
actors and directors, because that's where it really, for example, if a contractor doesn't understand the blueprints that an engineer, made, it's what kind of contractor is that? If he doesn't understand the intricacies.
Right.
So the writing really kind of opened up a whole new world of understanding for me, and a lot of well-known directors will tell you this. Like Akira Kurosawa or even Tarantino, he writes most of his stuff. The writing is
Hmm.
where a lot of the hard work is done, honestly. So because I've been writing my own stuff, that is the hardest part for me, but it's the most
Yeah.
enjoyable because you can just do it. You can pick up the pen whenever you want or your keyboard, whatever. Nobody can stop you. Nobody can say, no, you can't do this. You don't have enough money. You're too this, you're too that. There's no roadblocks. It's just you, yourself, and your time. So you just have to either do it or not do it. But I encourage anyone that's trying to get into this industry to really start writing because you don't need anyone's permission. You can work on all your
Yeah.
crafts, the
Right.
directing, the writing, the acting through writing. And so that's where the hard work is done. For me, right now, is through the writing. And when I write, I'm able to build these characters. For example, Jake, I already knew who Jake was by the time I finished the screenplay. I was living with him for about a year, writing him, trying to figure out. No, because as an actor, you want to understand who this character is, why he
Right.
does what he does, what his circumstances are. And I'm creating that. I'm literally creating that from scratch. And then you live with it for so long that you kind of start relating to it, and then you have to make that switch ultimately where you become that person, and that's always
Mhm.
very fun. And the same thing with the directing. You see, the hardest part for so the director for me is like the captain of a ship, right? He needs to know a little bit of everything. He needs to know,
Yeah.
but it's his job to make sure the ship gets to where it needs to go to, the vision. So that's where the vision comes in, and that again through the writing, it becomes very organic. I mean, I would love to direct somebody else's script at some point, or act in someone else's stuff, which I've
Yeah.
done. And because
Yeah.
then that's a whole nother, well, you get to create all these things from the beginning, but then you can also ask the director questions. So I'll have to ask myself questions. Oh, what do you know? And I'm being funny, but what I'll do is I have a group of people that I trust and who I think guide me very well. So I'll
Mhm.
ask them the questions. Hey, I don't understand this about my work, because sometimes that happens. You'll hit like a roadblock, or maybe you're too close to the forest to see the trees
Yeah.
because you've been with it so long. You don't see where the issues might come, or so it's good to have kind of an entourage of people around you that you can trust. It doesn't have to be an entourage. You need at least one or two people that can tell you, hey, why don't you try this, or quite frankly, hey, that sucked. Let's do that again.
Mhm.
And for me, this has been my DOP, my director of photography. We've kind of had a shorthand, so I'll tell him, hey, if I do something which is sucky, you just let me know. Maybe I'm in a weird, funky mood, because that's as an actor, writer, director, where it becomes challenging is if something's not going right on the film set, and it's your time to do a scene. It's
Yeah.
hard to
You're
turn
right.
that off because you're thinking, oh man, I gotta take care of that. So you really have to, that's where it gets a little tricky. But again, it's like any other muscle. You have to be able to turn it on and off, put those problems out the door until you finish what you got to do, and then you can go to them. So it's really just like a muscle. Practice makes perfect, and yeah,
You
practice.
know, in your opinion, from your opinion,
Hmm.
because I don't want, and I know some people, if you say anything, they go, "We don't all think this way." But in your opinion, for your culture, how do you feel Hollywood depiction of types of characters that we kind of brushed in a little bit about earlier? Do you think
Yeah.
it's getting better for as far as in your with your culture as how they're depicting characters or finding roles in films?
Yes, it's definitely getting better. But I remember when I started out, it was, the brown guy it was like the comic relief.
Mhm.
Either you're a terrorist or thug number something, thug number
Right.
five or whatever, or you're the comic relief. A lot of South Asians and brown people are relegated to comedy, and we've kind of made a space for ourselves in the comedy scene. You have a lot of famous comedians who are Indian or brown or whatever, and so there's
Hmm.
that. So people expect, oh, all these brown guys and brown people, women, they must be funny. I mean, look, my life was not funny growing up.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't see much comedy in it. I saw a lot of darkness, honestly, and I'm a pretty lighthearted person. I can be funny, I think, sometimes, but I just never veered towards the comedy. I remember when I was starting out, people were like, "Oh, you should do comedy." I'm like, well, okay, I guess. I just didn't, have any, like when it came to the writing and the directing. I just didn't veer towards that direction, and that's where a lot of people tried to push me. I said, no, no, this is what I want to do. I'm going to stick to this. Let me do it. And you know what? That's what creates the way. Because if one person does it and another person does it, I mean, now we have a lot of, uh, brown actors, South Asians who have kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
broken through.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they've broken through. They're stars, so they're at the level where they can command certain things. If you have a draw with the audience, you're able to say, hey, I want to try this kind of movie, I want to do this, because you're
Oh,
the asset.
right.
But most of us aren't in that position, and we're still
Yeah.
relegated to, oh, we need terrorist number 4, or we need thug number
Hmm.
8. We need this comic relief character in this convenience store, and there's still a lot of that. It's getting better, but again, I'm not one to complain. I don't blame how the system is. That's just how it is. It's changing. Now I can
Yes.
sit and I can complain about it, or I can do something about it. And I choose to do something about it because I can't be idle. I don't want to get complacent. And maybe it's my job to show people what we're, not my job, but maybe I'm part of that change, where we can show like, hey, there's this whole other way these characters can and should be perceived.
Yes.
It doesn't always have to be the same thing. And I think with this whole streaming thing, the audience is so open to different things. Like, for example, if you
Hmm.
get on Netflix right now, there's so many Indian shows, there's so many Italian shows, Spanish shows, and this is in America, right? This is on Netflix in America, and this
Yes.
is what people are watching. So look, people are open to things. So why not give it to them and kind of do that. But it takes, look, the system's been along for a long time, and it's not something that's going to get change overnight. I think as people
Right. Yeah.
create more opportunities.
Yeah.
uh, so both of my films, both times it was fully ethnic cast. I mean,
Yeah.
the minority was whites in my movies, and this wasn't by design. It was just based on the story. It was based on the story. They're both American movies, American stories about America, but they're about not the kind of American that we're always used to seeing,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
and to be authentic, it's not like I was not trying to have white people in my movie. No, it wasn't that. It was just that this is the environment. You go to my neighborhood now in Queens, you'll think you won't know you're in America. I
Yeah.
could put you on
I
my
understand what you're
block.
saying.
You smell things, like the food is different and the people are different.
Yes.
They're wearing traditional garb. All the stores have their unique look. You wouldn't know where you are. You go to Jackson
Yes.
Heights, you think you're
Yes.
in India. You go somewhere else, you think you're somewhere else. And
Yes.
now I live in Long Island. Very different. So, but I think it's important for us to be exposed to everything, and
Yeah.
to get the real sense of things, and not just what we're used to or what we're comfortable with.
I think it has gotten better, on account of, I went off the boat, and it was of an Asian family, and I was like, oh, I was watching it because you didn't see much of it, and
Yeah,
then now there's Bob and Ebola, where she's, I think, like, of African descent and family,
yeah,
and so now Joe Coy, Filipino, he's kind. I was like, oh, okay, so it's people do want to see it because now it's going to be about his Filipino family and culture, not really his family, but based off of Filipinos. And so
hmm
I'm really excited about that coming out. So I do believe that it's not growing fast enough, but people
but it
are
is.
looking for it
hmm
and want to
It
see it.
is. It
And
is.
it's
It is. And that's a good sign.
the so when you're I wanted to ask, as I said in the beginning, I'm an Alfred Hitchcock. Like, I
hmm
like mystery, I like anticipation. A lot of movies today, and there's a lot of series. It's like I can watch it up until maybe the first hour, or maybe, and now everything is in sessions on Netflix and stuff. And I
Yeah.
already know, I'm like, oh, I know it's going to happen. I hate that feeling. So do you feel as though we're losing some of that kind of, to where it gives the viewer, the consumer, a need for wanting that, like, you don't, it's such a, it's kind of like reality, forgive me, but reality shows, which I don't even watch those anymore, is
hmm
it's like, what's going to happen next. Do you think we're losing that in Hollywood? It's like, you already know. It's like, oh, I've seen this
Yeah.
before. it's just different actors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, look, Hollywood is a big machine, and I understand why what happens in Hollywood, why we keep getting. I understand it because I'm in the industry, but from someone from a different perspective, and they might not get it, is these companies and these investors, it's sometimes billions of dollars on the line. So they stick with what's comfortable. They make,
Let's say,
yes, and they stick with what they know there's going to be an audience for. And that's why we kind of keep seeing the same type of movie over and over, like you said, but with different faces.
yeah, right.
Because they know, maybe if it won't be critically acclaimed, but we're going to get a certain amount of business or a certain amount of audience. Now, that
Right,
doesn't mean that you can't take risks within those
right.
parameters. It's just
Hmm.
hard at that level, and I can't really speak for it because I'm not there. One day I hope to be doing things like that, kind of putting my stamp on a bigger in a bigger way.
Yeah,
But in the indie scene, on the other end of it, you have people just making movies, and sometimes the movies don't even make sense. And like the real art, the kind of
yeah.
experimental. So we're talking about the kind of like the polar opposites, where now you'll have like an experimental film where again the
Mhm.
average audience would watch it and they would say, "What did I just watch? I didn't get,
Right, right,
I
right.
didn't get it." Kind of like these very art heavy films. And then you
Mhm.
have the middle ground, right? Kind of like that. Oh, it's not so good, it's not so bad, but all right, I'll watch it. Kind of, what we were talking about
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
So it is a hard question to answer, but let me try to answer it from my own point of view. For example, I'm into thrillers, uh, so it's a crime thriller with some suspense and some drama, and it's a genre film. Now, in the genre film, the audience is a specific. Not everyone likes every genre, right? There's people that love thrillers, and there's people that hate
Hmm.
thrillers. So when a person, an enthusiast of a specific genre, wants to watch a film, in the back of their mind, they're expecting certain things. Now, if I tell you you're gonna watch, oh, I made a thriller, then you watch it, and it's nothing but two people just hugging and talking the whole time, you're gonna say, "Hey, you lied to me," Oh no, but there was so much suspense in the hugging and the talking. But they're like, I didn't feel it. No. So there's certain things that you have to. I'm not gonna say follow, but there's expectations that have to be met.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so in a thriller, usually that's, you set something up and somebody makes a decision and now they have, everyone's after them and now how are they going to get out of
Hmm.
this?
Yeah, yeah,
You have to create these circumstances, but the interesting thing is how you do it. That's where you can kind of take people on a different ride, I think. And I'm still learning, I'm still
yeah.
starting out. And I was able to get to a much better place in the scrapper because I knew some of the rules now, I knew some of the expectations. And then
Hmm.
I said, okay, how can I do something different? What can I do different here? Where people might be like, oh my God, why I can't believe that happened, Because so it's good to have that, but there's yeah, it's very tricky. I honestly don't know how to answer. I don't think I've answered your question fully,
Okay,
but
so I
yeah,
wanted to say about for upcoming filmmakers, but not even just upcoming, but it's I would say really this question is for upcoming filmmakers
yeah,
because I know all kind of filmmakers get involved in festivals like Sundance and similar festivals. How
yes.
important are those for visibility and education? Do you think that it's something that every filmmaker should be involved in, or is what I'm saying? How important,
Festivals,
yeah,
yeah.
are those film festivals?
So look, I think every filmmaker, it would be amazing, but that's just not the reality. Getting into Sundance is probably more difficult than winning $100 million lottery.
Wow.
That's how
Wow.
difficult it is. They get so many submissions and there's so much good work out there. And so I haven't gone to many festivals. I think I'm more of a commercial filmmaker, but don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I spent thousands between the two films. I think I must have spent $10,000 submitting to festivals. And in a way, it sucks because you're spending all these resources, and it's a
Hmm.
lot of it is just, oh, is the person who's watching my film gonna click with it?
Right, right.
That's
Yeah,
honestly most of
yeah.
the time what it comes down to. And then there's so many films that are being curated already for festivals. So there's only so many spots open for up and
Mm,
coming directors. So you're really putting
right.
your eggs in one basket, trying, like, don't get me wrong, I was there when I made my first movie. I was like, I'm going to Sundance. And
Yeah.
then reality hit me in my face when I realized how many movies are submitted, how many actually get in, what are the percentages, the odds, and
Hmm.
a lot of these $1 million movies. And then, but so I guess somebody else will say, oh, but there's so many festivals. Yes, there's tons of festivals, and most of them, I'm sorry to say, are probably not going to be worth your submission fee.
Right, right.
Especially nowadays with everything going online, a lot of these festivals are making money off of your movie. You're paying them a submission fee, and then they're
Yeah.
going and charging other people to see your movie, and you're not going to get a cut of that. So the the
Wow, I
the
didn't know that. That's good.
things are changing. So my advice would be, if look, if you can get into a festival, an A-list festival somehow, that'd be phenomenal, because getting into a top festival could be career changing. And
Hmm.
don't get me wrong, I will continue to send my work to the top festivals, because
Right,
those are
of
the
course.
ones where you really do get a lot of visibility. And but like I said, I don't think I'm really a festival filmmaker, because my films tend to have more of a commercial aspect to them, especially
Yeah.
thrillers. It's very hard for thrillers, because I'm competing with the kind of bigger Hollywood thrillers for that
Right.
one slot. So for filmmakers who are getting into this and are looking at festivals, look, it could be a great way to find people who support you and support your
Hmm.
work, but just be real with your expectations. Don't think, oh, you made a movie, it's good, it should get into Sundance. That's far from
Right.
it,
Yeah.
because getting into those top ones, it's literally like winning the lottery. And again, a lot of times it has nothing to do with your movie, because most of those movies that are being considered are good. So it's got a lot to do with what they're looking for that year. Maybe it's got, maybe they already want certain types of films. And so I wouldn't bank on festivals to make or break your career, because that's just not how it
Mm,
is. And especially now with the way things are changing, I would say do your research before you pay a submission fee. Make sure you no
right.
make sure your chances of getting in
Right.
are something which you're okay with. Like, if like, know what your chances are. Is it 1 in 100? Is it 1 in 10,000? Is it 1 in 100,000?
Well,
Because that's how, like these bigger festivals, that's that's what it is. They're getting maybe 50, 60,000 submissions. Now, what makes you think that yours is the one? What is it? Like, what's driving you to
mhm.
do this? And it took me two films to get to this understanding. Nothing against festivals. I've gone to some festivals, and sometimes they could be amazing experiences, and you can meet a lot of collaborators there. But I know, as a new filmmaker myself, I had this weird deluded expectation, like, oh, I'll make a movie, it'll be good, and then I get into a big
Right.
festival. Next thing you know, I got agents knocking down on my door, and now I'm gonna have, so much work and so much prestige. That's far from it. It's a uphill struggle no matter what. And honestly, even if you just another fun exercise is look at the movies that did get into Sundance and Tribeca and Toronto. See if all of them actually got distributed the next
Oh,
year.
oh, wow.
Sometimes some of these movies that even make it there don't even get distribution. So I guess my final answer is, the festival is not the end goal. That could
Okay.
be one more asset to get you to your end goal, which is reaching your audience and getting your movie distributed. Now that's a whole nother can of worms where you can kind of, lose your shirt there. And again, you have to manage expectations. What I'm learning as I progress is how my expectations were so high, and they kind of get cut down to size when you realize how much content there's out there, how many hundreds of movies are being released daily. Like, how are you supposed to watch all this stuff? So you really, really, really have to manage your expectations,
Yeah.
know why you're doing this, know what the end goal is, have that vision, and try not to get too depressed along the way.
Well, I know we're coming to the end of our show, and I really enjoyed how much you shared because you shared a lot, and I want to make sure for anybody who kind of jumped in later on the podcast, and I know somebody had raised their hand, they weren't sure what we're talking about because they came in the middle. But my guest today, and you will be able to watch the full interview if you go to entrepreneurlifeshow.com, is Barry King, actor and director, writer, and of course he is a very excellent writer. He's into crime drama, so I'm sure you're familiar with Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino. Very similar, not the same, but very similar. And so you'll really want to watch what he has. On Roku. I know Roku, and the other one was on Tubi TV, Scraper, and Lucky. They're all streaming, but I know you have to be having other works. I'm hoping you're having other works
Yes.
because your acting is great. Do you think you'll always be acting in your own films?
I don't know. So far, I tend to write. I hope not. I hope more people get to see my work, and that I'm asked to audition for other. I would love to work with directors that I admire. Like, look, I'm a newbie. I mean, I may be getting a little older, but I'm a newbie. I'm an infant. I'm still a toddler in this game. I have so much to learn,
Right.
and you know, I just love to meet people who are have progressed further than myself,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I find that a challenge, and then I find inspiration from that. And so I would love to work with some of these amazing up and coming directors, and of course established directors. So I hope not. I hope I'm not just acting in my own stuff, but yeah. But until that day comes, and why not?
Well, thanks again for being such a wonderful, entertaining guest. Of course, we wish you great success and make sure that anyone who wants to connect and make sure where to find and everything that's coming up, Barry will let you know where you can find him. Actually, I kind of looked at your IMB page. So it's nice to see that. I mean, I always go there because that's where you find great people. So if
Yeah,
you're not familiar and you want to connect and you're looking for, actors or just what people are participating in, because I actually go there when I had Scotch Loring. That's
hmm,
how I found him. I had him on one of my when I started my podcast. And I had seen him on a few shows where he had some scenes. And so that's where I go look for people all the time. Because you really find people that are, if they're starting out, they're like, oh my gosh. And then you wouldn't realize that those small films, how they've
yeah,
gotten to where they are today because you start in those small films. So where can they make
absolutely.
sure that everybody make sure they find you?
Well, if you want to watch the movie, it's free on Tubi TV, The Scrapper. It's there, so definitely check out The Scrapper. And if you want to drop me a line, my information is public on IMDb. I'm not big on social media, but my accounts do exist. It's at Barry Kang one. That's mine. And then if you want to check out some more stuff on the film, it's at The Scrapper Movie on Instagram as well. But yeah, I'm out there, and my email is on IMDb if anyone wants to drop me a line. Check out The Scrapper on Tubi, and drop me a line. Let me know what you thought. And I do have something else that I'm working on now. I just finished a new screenplay, so the kind of the engines gearing up again, and getting ready to get into that mode again.
Well, very exciting to hear, and I'm just hoping that when you actually are getting like an Emmy or something for your work, then you were like, hey, remember Rose and the Entrepreneur Life Show? So,
Look,
because I'm
you know
sure
what?
you're going to be a
Yeah,
great success.
no, it's honestly, it's not about the awards. I have something that gets me through things is if I can connect with one person, that's a positive thing. That's a sign. Just one believer, one person, is enough. You don't need too much.
Well, thanks again for being on the show, and for everybody who has been tuning in every Thursday, for my faithful listeners. I so appreciate you very much. And for everybody who has tuned in for the first time, make sure you go to the entrepreneurlifeshow.com page. You can see all the past interviews, all the current interviews. You'll also see us streaming on your Roku stick and Fire TV, as well as several different podcasts. And to find out what platform we're streaming on, just go to entrepreneurlifeshow.com, scroll to the bottom, and you're going to see every streaming platform. Until next week, everybody, have a really, really wonderful weekend. We're at the end of the week. And thanks, everybody. Bye. See you until next time.
Take care.
Entrepreneur Life Show.